For more on the protests and a potential wave of Palestinian refugees coming to the United States, let's bring in Florida Republican Congresswoman María Salazar. She's a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. You heard how former Senator Sass handled the protests at the University of Florida, where he is now president. What do you think of that approach?
Bravo. That's the way we do business in Florida. Not only the president of UF, but the governor, Ron DeSantis. We have proven over and over again that we are in business and that, like the president of UF said, there are still adults in the room. What is the difference between violence and free speech? Apparently, look what's happening in NYU, where some of the teachers were rewarding the students to go to the protests in exchange of a good grade. Look what's happening in UCLA, where they're still, for what I'm hearing the last few minutes, the protesters are still clashing, one group with another, and the police has not been able to keep control. And I mean, that doesn't happen in Florida. And, you know, I think that we should put this into a bigger analysis. This is the neo-Marxism forces penetrating academia, who have been penetrating academia in this country for the last 40 years. And I represent, the city of Miami, Cuban exile community. We know what it looks like and what it sounds like. And of course, everyone has the right of free speech and protest. Of course, do a vigil all night with a candle and don't say a word. There are many ways to protest something that's happening in another part of the world, but not by killing or not by throwing stones or saying kill the Jews in some of the campuses. I mean, it doesn't sound right, but in Florida, we do it right. And for those who might have been a little hard of hearing, you were applauding the president of the UF, the University of Florida, not the president of the U.S. earlier in that. No, president of the UF, yes. Yeah, just wanted to make that clear. The University of Florida and the governor, they have been working hand in hand, Ron DeSantis, with the president of UF. And there's another distinction. UF is a public university. All these other schools are Ivy League, elite. I was wondering, what are the big donors to these schools going to be thinking now? Most of them belong to the Jewish community. Because, throughout the years, they have been writing big checks with no strings attached. And look, what's the product? I think this is a new reset where the people that are contributing to these universities got to be thinking, where am I sending my money to? To what type of ideology? Not neo-Marxism. The president of the U.S. is not winning a popularity race based on his handling of these college protests. Now, that's not the only thing in this latest poll from ABC Ipsos. But asked if people approve of his job performance, only 35% said yes, 57% said no. If you compare that to the previous president at this point in his term, Donald Trump had a 42% approval rating. Barack Obama had a 47% approval rating. It's pretty tough to win re-election with a 35% approval rating and the election 6 months away, Congresswoman. It's the economy. It's the economy. And I'm sure that many of the people who are watching us are not thinking when they go to the supermarket, okay, let me see if the eggs are Republicans or they are Democrats. The eggs are $8, $9 for 12 eggs. During the previous administration, there were $1.99, $2.99. So thank God that the average American who's not really thinking about what's happening in Washington or not thinking about the next election, but they do see it, they do feel it in their pocket. They know that inflation went up, and it has come down a little bit, but not to the levels where we were 4 years ago. And that has consequences. And thank God for the American electoral system that people will know how to vote next November because of the consequences of those elections. Talking about consequences, the administration is floating the prospect of bringing in Palestinian refugees to the United States to help get them out of Gaza. What do you think of that? Look, I always say that Democrats do not have the monopoly on compassion. I do believe that there are millions of Palestinians who are as much of a victim of Hamas as the Israelis are. They are also victims because they are ignorant and they do not know that there are other options, political options, because Hamas doesn't let them have those options. the Palestinians in Gaza have been hijacked by Hamas. If President Biden decides to allow any of them, they have to be highly vetted. I would say women and children, highly vetted. I know that we are a country full of compassion. My parents, political refugees, they came in the 60s because Fidel Castro promised Marxism, democratic socialism. But in this case, we know that many Palestinians have been changed their minds, to put it that way, that Hamas is not as bad as it is. But I think that if they are going to come to the United States, this administration needs to make sure that they are friendly to the U.S.
It is a
not
story.
an enemy.
It's a story we're going to be keeping an eye on here on Fox. Congresswoman María Salazar, Republican of Florida. Thank you.
To you.